Hello everyone, in this video I'll be talking about Karl Marx's Kapital, or Das Kapital, or the Capital, the first one of the saga, of the Marx cinematic universe if you will. I think it's a very interesting work, and arguably Marx's best, so it's definitely worth talking about. It's also a very difficult one. It's not particularly long, but it's very dense if you know what I mean. More often than not I had to read a paragraph 3 to 4 times to really make sense of it. But this is just me, and I'm not a particularly good reader, nor do I have the academic credentials to really make insightful commentary on such a monumental work. But I am an average working class person, so really you could say that I am Marx's ideal target audience. And I think that Granddaddy Marx would have much preferred that more workers like myself read and understood this work than a bunch of snobby Poindexter bourgeois academics that smell their own farts and like to talk with big words to confuse what they consider lowly simple people. Now let me just say, everything that I say in this work is straight out of Marx's mouth. I prefer not to say if I really believe in all of these ideas. I am coming from a strictly objective perspective, so if I get a bit worked up talking about this stuff, just know that I'm just projecting Marx's own tone and spirit from his work. I will also do my best to avoid putting in long quotes directly from Marx, but it is impossible to do this completely. Some of these quotes are just too good to not put in. Now, let's begin. Part 1. Use value and exchange value. Capital begins with the sentence, "The wealth of those societies in which the capitalist mode of production prevails presents itself as an immense accumulation of commodities." You look around and you see that we depend on a vast array of products to live our everyday lives, from toothbrushes to computers to bread and video games and milk and coffee and everything in between. And this is exactly what Marx talks about in the first 3 chapters. He asks the question, what exactly is a commodity, and really goes to town with it. A commodity is something that we purchase that satisfies a certain human necessity. We eat bread for consumption, to not die. We play a video game to entertain ourselves. Whether a commodity satisfies a want that springs from nature, something we need to survive, like bread, or whether it comes from something purely recreational, like video games, does not matter in the slightest. These are both commodities. However, it is obvious that they are different. The specific use that the commodity satisfies is different. Marx calls this a commodity's use value. It is its specific utility. A commodity also has an exchange value. Exchange value is the proportion that it can be exchanged with other types of commodities. 20 loaves of bread can be exchanged for 1 video game, let's say. We can express this in the equation 20 loaves of bread equals 1 video game. We can do this with all the other types of commodities. 20 loaves of bread equals 30 pounds of coffee. 20 loaves of bread equals 10 gallons of milk. Okay, this is all fine and good. So there are 2 aspects of a commodity, use value and exchange value. But something interesting arises from this. It turns out that you can only determine the exchange value of a commodity when you compare it with other different classes of commodities. For example, if we were to say 20 loaves of bread is equal to 20 loaves of bread, we would not really be saying much. It does not tell us the value of those 20 loaves of bread. It's only until we compare them with another type of commodity, like a video game, is when we can determine the value of a commodity. So we had said 20 loaves of bread equals 1 video game. This tells us that 20 loaves of bread is worth as much as 1 video game. But why is this so? Why does it take 20 loaves of bread to equal the value? And now when I mention value, I'm referring to specifically its exchange value of just 1 video game. Well, Marx says, this is because of the amount of time that is necessary to produce that commodity. So, the amount of time necessary to produce 20 loaves of bread is the same as the amount of time necessary to produce 1 video game. 20 times more labor, measured in time, went into producing a video game. That's why it takes 20 loaves of bread to equal the amount of labor in just that 1 video game, at least in our universe. So labor is what gives commodities their values. It does not matter what specific form that labor takes place. The work of a baker is much more different than the work of a programmer, that's obvious. But just the fact that a human being had to use his brain and corporeal being in concentrated effort to make a thing gives it value. You might ask, well, what if the person producing a commodity takes a sweet time to produce it? Wouldn't they be able to sneakily, artificially increase the value of that commodity? That is a good question, but Marx describes the value of a commodity as the amount of time no more than socially necessary to produce. So it's the amount of labor, measured in time, that went into producing that commodity in normal conditions. That is a determiner of value. So no, if a barnacle head is taking twice as much time to produce a commodity, he will not be able to sell this commodity at twice its normal value, because he will be up against other producers that put in half that time, to produce the same commodity, and of course he won't be able to sell it. So we can easily see that the value of a commodity, exchange value, is a socially constructed value, can only be determined in the act of exchange. And for this to happen, two parties, two people, two possessors of commodities must enter the market as private owners of their own commodities. They have the right to exchange their commodity to whoever wants it, and also they have the right to not exchange this commodity if they don't want to for whatever reason. Of course, the actual market won't be exactly as I have described it. A person possessing 20 loaves of bread won't trade directly with another possessing a video game. We don't live in a bartering system. There will be money involved. Money, according to Marx, is just another commodity. What's special about it is that its use value is to determine the value of all commodities. So if we say one video game is equal to 10 gold coins, it would be saying that the amount of socially necessary time to produce those 10 gold coins is the same to produce a video game. Gold has to be mined, after all, so it takes a certain amount of labor to produce it, just like any commodity. If you are dealing with paper money, well, this is just a convenient way to represent gold. So now we could say that a video game is equal to $60, and we can do this for all commodities now. For example, we could say that a beanie is worth $10 and some glasses can be worth $15. So what appears to us as the value of commodities is now the price of it, or the amount of the commodity money that can be exchanged for it. But at the heart of it, the determiner of value is still the amount of labor, measured in time, that is no more than socially necessary to produce it. Okay, so that deals with the first 3 chapters of Kapital. Now let me be real for a second. These first 3 chapters are probably the most boring thing I've ever read in my life. I was about to call it quits at this point when I first read it. But I had been warned, even by Marx himself in the prologue, that these are difficult to get through. When we think of Marx and his theories, we tend to think about sexier concepts like exploitation of the workers, alienation, surplus labor, not really Poindexter stuff like use value and exchange value. But we are nearing the sexier parts of Kapital. If you like this video, I would greatly appreciate it if you gave it a like and subscribe to my channel. I plan to continue making these videos, although I don't really have any idea how long the next one will take to be released. Next video will be on the forms of circulation. Goodbye.